Deb, it's the first time back in the studio, like really sitting down in the studio and not being manic about recording. So I'm going to give you a dealer's choice for this cold open. Option 1, option 2. Option 1 or option 2.
Oh, it's like door 1, door 2. I don't know what's behind it.
I am... Who's the guy who hosted Let's Make a Deal? Not the current guy, Wayne Brady, who I love.
Bob Barker.
No, that was The Price is Right. The original guy.
I can picture him, dark hair.
Do I want to say Monty Hall?
Yes, it was Monty Hall.
Is that correct?
I think that's right, yeah. Oh my gosh, where did you pull that out of?
No idea. So I'll be Monty Hall. You be the contestant dressed as a Raggedy Ann doll on Let's Make a Deal.
I like that.
Door number 1 or door number 2. Within these faux, fake, hypothetical doors are topics that we can discuss during this cold open. And if I think one is lacking, we'll just pivot to the other one.
Door number 2, please, Monty.
13 months ago.
Yeah.
When we went into quarantine.
Right.
2 weeks before that, you said, Kevin, should we go buy toilet paper? We have discussed this ad nauseum on this podcast that I said, why in God's name would we go buy toilet paper for a viral virus? Right. And you said, well, I don't know. It just makes sense to me. And then my smart brain outthought the idiot brains of everybody else, and toilet paper was a currency at one point.
Right. And I said it before it was a currency.
Correct.
Yeah.
One of the byproducts of all the toilet paper going away was that we bought toilet paper that I think is just one space removed from tree bark. Okay.
Leaves, maybe.
And again, we've talked about that ad nauseum, and we still have a bountiful amount of that toilet paper 13 months later. One of the other things that happened was that the baby wet wipes vanished from the face of the planet.
That's for sure.
If you're not a part of the wet wipe gang.
Well, and let's be clear. A normal baby wet wipe may or may not be flushable because obviously it just goes in the diaper.
Correct.
The kind you want are the kind that say...
When you say obviously, not obvious to me, I assume that you just threw the wet wipes somewhere else. Now that I know that it just goes in the dirty diaper, that makes all the sense in the world to me.
That's what I did.
Spoiler alert, I don't have kids.
Okay, so that's what I did. And so then wrap the diaper up and then, it's all. So you do want the wet wipes that say flushable. That is a huge thing.
Absolutely. And we live in an older house, and we have to be very discerning with the amount of things we flush down the toilet here. But I, for the last year, have been waiting with bated breath for wet wipes to come back at Costco or Sam's Club or really anywhere online that aren't charging you a king's ransom for them. My bottom needs them. I remember years ago, years and years ago, I was just writing a satirical blog about the greatest inventions in the 20th century.
Right.
And I believed wet wipes to be that thing.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're back.
Is that why I saw a little pack of them on the stairs?
Yes. I went to Costco on Wednesday when you were gone, and like a longing lover gazing off into the horizon, I looked to where I know that the wet wipes usually are, and it's usually full of baby wipes that are not flushable.
Right.
And now I know that they're not flushable because you just put them with the diaper and you wad the diaper up and you put it in the diaper disposal thing, and then off it goes to the trash can. I've already learned something 5 minutes into this podcast.
Yay.
But none of them have been flushable. So prior to this, I had gone to Amazon and just searched for anything resembling a reasonably priced flushable wipe. I would say for the first 9 months of this pandemic, there was nothing. I eventually bought some that were way too expensive, but I just finally rationalized it. Wednesday, I gaze off fully anticipating to have my eyes be met with this same cute Gerber smiling baby face that says non-flushable. And there in a perfect square box are the flushable wipes. And it was in that moment that I felt the planet is healing. It was, I probably let out a
like, squeal.
Like everybody around me was probably a little, nervous by this lone man just walking over to a baby section in sheer delight.
And hugging the box as he picked it up.
I stopped myself from buying 5 boxes of them.
No. How many did you buy?
I only bought one because there was a large amount left. But in the back of my brain, I said, if you buy 5 boxes, you're no better than everybody else who bought this stuff out years ago. It's a year's supply. It's like 700 wipes. I can't fathom that you would need more than 1 box, but there was a piece.
You never know.
There was a piece of me that said, Kevin, take them all.
Take them all.
Take them all. And then when the second pandemic hits, sell them on Amazon for quadruple the price.
Exactly.
Credit me for not being a price gouger like that.
Okay. I would like to tell the listening audience at this point in time that a GoFundMe account has been started in the name of Kevin Zener.
Yep.
We're looking to purchase him a bidet at the soonest possible because I actually believe in the long run, over the course of his life, that might be cheaper than buying the wipes and better for the environment.
I have friends who have one of those attachable bidets to the toilet, which I understand that when toilet bowl water hasn't been used, it's still clean water, right?
Right.
I don't understand the technology of the attachable bidet in that, is it siphoning water from the bowl or is it siphoning water from the tower?
I don't know. Good question.
Because if it's siphoning water from the bowl...
That doesn't make you happy, no.
No. Because you've done your business, right? At the point
even though it's flushed, there could be some microbes and things in there.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm all about trying out a bidet. I think it's just more mental that a region of my body that doesn't get flushed like that is now getting a super soaker stream shot at it.
Well, if you thought you had to squeal over
right. Yeah.
The wipes.
The first time that happens, I might let out more than a squeal. The neighbors might call to make sure I'm okay.
I think that this is the one place that we just follow the Europeans. And we have a toilet and we have a bidet.
If I would have told you when you were growing up that you have the option of putting a bidet in your house, would you have thought you were a gajillionaire?
No, I wouldn't have gotten the bidet.
I
wouldn't literally. The bidet would have had to have been explained to me. Like I would be like,
okay, but do I
use it every single time? Do I go over there?
We go to a would you rather situation. I teleport back in time and I'm standing in front of 15-year-old Deb. I'm not even going to tell you that I'm your son from the future. We're ignoring all of that.
Okay.
But I say, in 50 years, you're going to have an option to where if you play it right, you never need to use toilet paper again on your bum. And you can have this option in every single bathroom in your house.
Yeah.
And then I just disappeared. And as I'm disappearing, I'm like, by the way, I'm your son. I still live with you.
I don't know. I think I would be kind of like, oh, he's cute. And the bum thing was sweet. Yeah.
Would you think like, oh, well, first off, technology is insane that we get to wash our bums without actually needing toilet paper.
I don't know if I was using the word technology, but go ahead.
Or would you have thought, wow, I wonder if this is the height of opulence. I must be rolling in dough.
I think I would have related it to the Jetsons.
But see, that's what I'm saying.
Is that the height of opulence? Or is that technology?
I would say that those kind of coalesce in that I think today, the newer piece of technology you have, the more quote unquote successful people think you are.
Right.
So if you have,
which is foolish,
of course.
Yeah.
So if you have machines that are cleaning your butt after you go to the bathroom, to me, that feels like I've made it.
Yeah.
I don't even have to do this myself.
Yeah.
I hit this remote control. My bum is clean. And then I just use a wet wipe just to make sure we've got everything because we've got 10 boxes of them.
Yeah. No. I think I think it would take a while for me to really get my head around it.
Really? You weren't conscious of bidets back then? Not conscious being like you thought about them all the time, but you didn't really know about them?
I knew about them. Here was my confusion, and I don't know when this was. It was like as a young person, very young.
Yeah.
Is I thought, okay, so you have a toilet next to a bidet, right?
Right. They were separate.
They were separate. I was confused as to why you would get off of the toilet and go to the bidet.
Fair.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
Okay. So then I thought that Europeans did it for everything.
What do you mean?
Like if a girl peed.
Okay.
Okay. I thought like you run over there for
And like
that.
if a guy peed, he just dangled his wang in the stream?
I didn't go that far.
Got it. Okay.
This might be, I just want to say after we're this far into the podcast, this could definitely be way too much information for everybody.
Hey.
I'm sorry.
Welcome back to a well-rested, not immediately off a plane Deb and Kev podcast.
So I don't think I thought about the guy in that
fair.
term.
Fair enough.
And then it was later that I realized, oh, you go over there for that, right? But even then, I think it took me a little while, like, wait, you kind of get up, you scoot over? Like, how does that work?
And the logistics of it are clearly you keep your pants down and then you do a side shuffle.
Exactly.
And then you just kind of crouch over
you
it.
make sure, no, it's in the right spot for sure.
But you don't put your butt down on it, do you? I thought you just like hovered over it.
No, you are on the little, by the bidet thing, you squat. But once you squat, the little faucet thing is in the right.
I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, do you sit on a bidet the same way you sit on the toilet?
Because the bidet doesn't have a regular seat.
Right. So
like
you're hovering over it.
So you're kind of hovering over it, but you got to get low because you don't want it to shoot.
I agree. But like, just to think that somebody thought, you know what's just terribly like barbaric is wiping your bum with coarse paper. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to let you get off of that toilet seat, slide 4 feet to your left, then just hover above a water fountain that hopefully has enough power to do the job. And then you still have to do some mop up afterwards.
Okay, so here's the two things. I want to say this for all of our European friends that are listening, because we recently looked at the countries and we have European. So
send us a bidet.
They literally are saying out loud to themselves, I mean, why are they even talking about this? And I never think of this, right? Because they've lived with them.
That's your norm.
Forever.
Yeah. Water fountains in your bum. That's your norm.
That's your norm. So the real confusing thing to me sometimes is that there is toilet paper at the toilet.
Yes.
But especially in Europe, at the bidet, there is often like a little, I'm going to say a fine linen. I've seen it 1,000 times.
In public restrooms or in personal homes?
In personal homes. I'm telling you, I won't touch that linen. I will reach across, go back to the toilet paper.
Because they're encouraging you to go green by reusing brown towels.
Nope, they're not doing that. I think that they're saying that you're so clean, it's fine. Or it's a mop-up.
This is exactly what we've just solved this.
Yeah.
Do
we sound like idiots?
No, I think we sound like, what are the Mythbusters? They say, do your number 2 doo-doo in this space.
Yeah.
Clean it up with some TP. Crab walk over to the bidet. Spray appropriately. Yeah. Then again, Cupid shuffle over to use this fine linen, and then you're good. Now,
I don't touch the fine
why
linen. Everybody
in God's name would you ever touch that linen?
No,
That's insane. I would wrap my hand in toilet paper and pad myself dry. I'm never using somebody's internal linen that God knows how many other people have used.
No. It never looks wrinkled. I don't know if somebody's running in there afterwards, but here's the thing. It looks like grandma's starched, fine little
doily
tea towel, maybe, right? I mean, just it's very nice. Yeah. And I mean, no way. I just wouldn't touch it for anything, even to dry my hands on.
How many times have people, especially Americans, use that to dry their hands or dab their face after they've used a European bathroom. Only to be told, did you use the bidet sanitizing napkin?
So I was traveling with Jill once, Geneva, Switzerland, one of the most gorgeous parks at Lake Geneva. And we were gorgeous weather walking around, and I have to go to the bathroom, and it says toilette, right? So I go in, I look, I come out, I say to Jill, she goes, that was fast. I go, there's a hole. All there is a hole in a stall with like little foot things for me to stand on.
Nice.
And she goes,
and some guy staring up at me.
She goes, yep. And I was like, chill. She goes, yep, get those pants down, get them forward, squat. I mean, so Europe's doing all sorts of different things, but somewhere there is some lovely Swiss woman that has a bidet that is horrified by this conversation.
Name another podcast that will talk about your bum for 16 straight minutes. Let's start the podcast.
Welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. One is a Harvard Business School alum. The other is her son, discussing business, pop culture, family, and everything in between. Now, here are your hosts, Deb and Kev.
Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. Fresh off another trip, pulling her best George Clooney impression from Up in the Air. It's my mom, Deb.
I'm Deb.
And that would make me Anna Kendrick, and I'm not mad about that at all. I'm her son, Kevin, and this is our podcast. On today's show, in Deb's business segment, we are going to talk about a topic that hits way too close to home for most of us, and that is the lies we tell ourselves. Woof. Strap in and hold on for that one. We'll let Deb ease back into her week, so we'll just pepper her with some brand new questions for our Dear Debbie segment. And of course, as is the tradition of this podcast, we will tell you what we're thankful for and what we'll be eating for dinner. And this week, we promise we'll make it.
We're going to cook.
But first, we have some housekeeping topics that we need to get in order. Deb, in the last 4 weeks, you have traveled 3 times. You've been to the East Coast, you've been to the Midwest, and you've been to the West Midwest. How are you feeling about travel, work life? Because if I didn't know any better, it looks like everything is normal in the Deb Z world.
I'm feeling pretty good about it. The airports feel full, but not crazy.
Yep.
And even when they say, like, I was on a couple of flights that they said, every seat on this plane is taken.
Yep.
And when I looked around at the loading area, it didn't feel like that, which
didn't
tells
feel
me
congested.
Which really tells me that there's a lot of other people hanging around for the flight after that under normal circumstances, right? So I don't think that kind of thing is happening. I did some, I'm going to call it last minute, scoot into the airport kind of thing.
Okay.
And it worked just fine.
Wonderful.
No matter where I was. So that part I think is always good. I think if I were to give anybody advice, it would be, you didn't have this experience, but I've had it every single time. This is not a big action, but at TSA, every time they say somebody, pull your mask down to check your ID, which has happened with me every time.
I've looked at everybody being the 2 people that have asked me to do it. And I said, usually the height is a good indicator. And they just look at me like I'm a big piece of garbage. But I think that should be half the checking in, which is, can I find a discernible characteristic about this person that clearly resonates on this ID? Right. And 6'7" usually is one of those.
But they're not looking at the height.
Of course.
So I was thinking about this the other day. While it doesn't seem a big deal, like it does seem like I want to say to all the people in line that heard him say, lower your mask 22 times in front of them.
True.
Just lower your mask.
Agreed.
Right. But that adds a little thing to it. I mean, that's time, right? I mean, having to do that little action.
For sure. Especially because a lot of people then have to readjust it. And for whatever reason, that takes them a minute.
Right.
And then that minute is them not getting everything on the conveyor belt to then walk through.
Exactly. So
First world problems, we understand it, but that's just the new norm.
So there is a little thing there, for sure. But on American Airlines, I was lucky enough to get upgraded on, I'm going to say all 3 legs. How sad is that? But all 3 legs. And while food is not being served. Treat boxes completely wrapped in plastic that, I mean, we're going to destroy the environment for all this. Mm-hmm. And then everything in the treat boxes are, of course, wrapped in their own thing. Yep. Treat boxes appeared on a couple of my flights. So I'm going to say it feels like we're getting there.
One of the things we didn't talk about on Thursday's episode, because we were manically just trying to create an episode, was on the day that I was supposed to fly out, I noticed on my e-boarding pass that I didn't have my TSA pre-check. So I called Southwest and I said, hey, I can't get my TSA pre-check to load up here and nothing has changed on my information. And credit to the wonderful Southwest gal who spent so much time with me trying to figure out every potential angle of why this wasn't happening, to which she eventually said, I have no idea. I'm so sorry. And I believe I was very calm, cool, and collected, but I just said, this is a really tough spot because I can't just call TSA and say, what's the deal? They're just going to not answer. So Southwest, can you help me in some capacity? And she did her best. We actually drove, because we had some time, we drove to the airport early to see if they could help us. They couldn't help us.
Well, they helped me because I had the same thing.
They helped you, only for me to realize my TSA pre-check had expired 2 weeks prior. Like, I just perfectly happenstance expired after the 5 years. When I was speaking to the Southwest woman, she said, well, don't you have a TSA card? And I'm like, I never had a TSA card. Light bulb, I do have a global entry card, which doubles for all the TSA things that you would want as well. So for anybody who is traveling, even if you don't travel a lot,
internationally,
anytime, doesn't matter, get yourself a global entry. You do have to do the check-in at a large metropolitan city. So if you live 3 or 4 hours away from, an airport that qualifies, I promise you it's worth it. It's like $100. You get all the necessary stuff for TSA when you travel nationally. The first time you travel internationally in that 7 years, you essentially get to skip customs. I mean, you still have to go through customs, but you get to skip the line of customs. And you and I have traveled together, and we have skipped upwards of 4.5 to 5 hour lines where we knew people who absolutely missed flights because of it. And we got through in about 10 minutes time.
Yeah.
It is worth it. It is worth it to pay that $100 or that $110 right now, even though it might make you feel a little uncomfortable. The second you get off that international flight and you see that literal sea of people waiting to go in the exact same direction as you, you'll have been willing to have paid 3 times that amount to skip that line.
And when you say $100, I want to make this clear. Global entry is only $15 more than TSA.
Right.
It only takes one time. And you are so happy. You and I went through Dallas one time, and all I can say is, if anyone's familiar with Dallas customs, I'm going to say it holds between 3,000 and 5,000 people.
Easy.
And it was out the hallway, turned twice. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
The line was so far back, it wasn't even mentioning the protocols for customs yet.
Right.
Like they had not ever anticipated that the people would be backlogged that far to where they would even need to disseminate this information. It was further back than that. And you and I just like pinned ourselves to the wall and just did some SEAL Team 6 stuff around this crowd to where we could eventually get to global entry. And we were in and through and onto our gates in 15 minutes. And we knew other people who were going to kind of be on our same flight who missed it. Yeah. And it was like 3.5 hour layover. They missed the flight.
Yeah, it was horrible. Now, I do want to say, if you're not inclined to want to have global entry or get
TSA?
through fast, no, really global entry, I'm also good with your choice, because I don't need all of you coming over into the global entry line either, right?
True.
I mean, so if you feel like TSA is good enough for you, or if you don't even want TSA, that is called freedom of choice. And I don't have an opinion about whether or not you do it.
I agree. So if your decision is to wait in 3 hour lines and allow people like Deb and I to be more expeditious in our travel, thank you. Mm-hmm. You love a crusty sourdough bread. I brought you a supposedly gluten-free, crusty sourdough bread. We decided not to eat it the night that I brought it, simply because if you had an adverse reaction to it, you waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch a flight wasn't going to be the best time for that.
Right.
You came home yesterday afternoon. We were just looking for something to nosh on. I said, wait a minute. I went out to the freezer where we had kept it, let it thaw for about 30 minutes, which, by the way, we're morons. It had freezing instructions on the bag, and we spent like an hour the night before you left trying to figure out the best possible way to keep it. You started hacking away at it as anybody would because it looks delicious. You haven't had sourdough bread in 5 or 6 years. You started eating it. In the back of my head, I just thought, I really hope this works well for her because if it doesn't, she's going to eat about a third of this thing and it's going to ruin her. So you ate it, and you ate it with butter, and you toasted it, and you dipped it in oil and vinegar, and oil and balsamic oil and olive oil. All the things you've missed about it, you did with it in the span of an hour. And I'm seriously sitting there being like, please don't kill your mom. Please don't kill your mom. Please don't kill your mom. And that was like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And before we went off to bed, was like 6 hours later. I said, how are you feeling? And you said, I feel absolutely fine. We went to bed. I woke up this morning fully anticipating a text from like 3 o'clock in the morning being like, it's not gluten-free. It's not okay. I've been over the toilet for the last 4 hours. You feel fine.
I feel great. Okay, so.
And everybody should know your celiac disease is harsh, meaning severe. That if you get any cross-contamination of even crumbs, you have a bad reaction to it. I have a
bad reaction. I seriously thought, will I actually eat this? This is so sweet of Jamie, so sweet of Kevin, to have brought this fabulous bread. And I'm telling you, this smells, cuts, looks just like the best sourdough in the world. When you opened it yesterday, it was green for go. There was no thought. So the first one I cut, just put butter on, Kerry butter, as Daddy would say.
Of course. Of course.
He has a thing about Kerry butter.
Yeah, he believes Kerry butter is going to cure his cancer with all the antioxidants.
As I was eating my grilled piece, you go, oh, no. And you go and grab a little dish and pour olive oil and I want to say espresso balsamic in it, which was very good.
Super good.
And so then I dipped the rest of it in that. I'm not lying. I could have gone through the loaf last night.
Totally.
And when I saw Dad cut into the loaf, it was all I could do to not go careening across the living room into the kitchen and not let him have his piece.
He in no way gets to eat this bread. Dad is okay eating Wonder Bread for all he cares. And so this like artisan 72-hour fermented bread that was packed and traveled 2 hours from where it was located to be given to the woman who hasn't touched bread in 6 years or whatever it is. No, it can't happen, especially because Dad just like will indiscriminately eat things like 3 times as large as they need to be, like that massive hunk he cut off last night. Like, I know it's not like of consequence to him, but he's like, oh yeah, this inch thick piece I'm going to carve away at here.
When I can literally go to Whole Foods and buy him some great artisan bread.
Of course.
Maybe I should do that today.
Sure.
Yeah.
So super duper happy that that worked out for you, because even on the crust of it, it looked like there was some flour, like residual flour.
Dusted. Yeah, it's been dusted for sure.
And I thought the bread itself might be fine, but the thin layer of actual flour on this might kill you. And here you are. I mean, I honestly thought we're going to have to push the recording of this podcast back if she has an adverse effect to this bread, because you do get flu-like symptoms.
You get, I do. I get flu-like symptoms, and then I'm visiting the bidet all day long.
It's true.
Yeah. But Kevin, I want you to explain, because it was interesting. It's not gluten-free flour that they use. Explain what they do.
Well, I don't know this off the top of my head other than what I've heard from hearsay, but, sourdough bread is sour because it's fermented. And what they do is they ferment it 3 times as long or 4 times as long as traditional sourdough is supposed to be fermented. And in that process, that fermentation, that living yeast is eating all of the gluten enzymes. So what you're left with is the same great tasting sourdough, but with none of that gluten. And I think it comes from more traditional bread making, where instead of saying, hey, what's the minimum time we have to wait for this to be considered sourdough? Instead, they say, what's the maximum time we can utilize to get this to be as traditional a loaf as possible? And that's what they do. And like I said, if there was going to be one person who was going to have an adverse effect to even this super duper fermented kind of quasi gluten-free bread, it was going to be you. So the fact that you're upright today and talking and excited and willing to have more of it is a testament to how absolutely gluten-free this bread is. One more topic that we need to discuss before we get into your business segment. This one actually pains me a little bit. So we've talked about Deb and I's Diet Coke coffee conversation drives that we've had. And the Diet Cokes are traditionally purchased at McDonald's. And if it's too late in the day, we go to Five Guys and we get the caffeine-free Diet Cokes from that large vending machine that can give you every Coke product ever made under the sun. Dad came home the other day and he said, I found a place close by that offers caffeine-free Diet Coke fountain drinks. And both you and I said, oh my God, amazing. Where is it? He's like, well, it's over on Lakeside. That's like a 2.5 mile drive from here. Wonderful. Where? And this is the part that pains me a little bit. It's out of 7-Eleven. We're 7-Eleven people now. We have gone to this 7-Eleven 2 or 3 times. We are now reward cards carrier of 7-Eleven. And I just want to be really honest with the audience. Like, it was a fine line going to McDonald's. It was a fine line going to Five Guys. We're no different than the people who walk into that 7-Eleven who don't necessarily look like they have their lives together. I'm not judging anybody. I'm not casting aspersions on these people. They all seem lovely. I don't care how many teeth don't exist in their mouth, but we're 7-Eleven people now. And that's a lifestyle that I didn't think I was ever ready for, but here we are. We go to 7-Eleven. We leave our house. We get into the car, fully anticipating that there's one venue that we're going to stop at, and it's a 7-Eleven. That's the type of person we've become.
There is a 7-Eleven blocks from our house, right?
Just do it.
You can't have shame on your face.
I don't know how you can't control it. I think
how do I have control?
You're like letting it, like you're not here. Can you feel it in your throat? Like, can you feel it before you talk? Before you talk, can you feel it?
Yes.
Can you deep swallow?
No, it just hangs. It's like it's dripping all day.
I refuse to believe you can't control it. I refuse to believe you can't control it.
And now I think I have esophageal cancer, and you're just making it worse.
You don't.
There is a 7-Eleven blocks from our house, very, very close. When you were little, you guys would walk down there to get Slurpees.
Yeah.
Not a bad 7-Eleven.
No, but I mean, like, has anybody ever said, like, you know where there's a really nice 7-Eleven? No, nobody's ever said that. This, in terms of 7-Elevens, is better. Yeah. But at the same time, you would have never been like, hey, why don't you guys just hang out at the 7-Eleven? Yeah.
So the 7-Eleven that has the caffeine-free Diet Coke, I'm not going to lie, is a little shady, okay?
Very shady. There are many trees casting shade on this place.
So I go in and I buy. So the first day, I didn't know about the rewards. I just go in and buy, I don't know, like the extra large big gulps.
Yeah.
And it cost $3.
Okay.
And a little bit of change.
Sure.
We were paying $8 at Five Guys.
Oh, I'm not saying that this doesn't financially make sense for us. It does.
But wait, then there's a rewards thing. And I think I bought it twice. I thought I can't be a 7-Eleven rewards.
Yeah, because when you buy the 7-Eleven, or when you sign up for the 7-Eleven rewards card, you also get a pack of Marlboro Reds for free.
Oh my God. No. No, they slipped me some Copenhagen, so I don't know.
They're like, and here's some dip too.
So here's some dip. So I say to the guy, so what do the rewards do? I mean, because I don't really care at that point.
Of course not. You're just trying to get out of 7-Eleven.
But then he says, you get a large Big Gulp for 76 cents.
Unbelievable.
I mean, doesn't the cup cost that?
Apparently
With the straw
not.
on the lid?
Yeah.
Apparently not.
Plastic's cheap.
And so now I'm like, here's my phone number, right? So I don't know. It's not as fun to go to the 7-Eleven.
No.
And the people at Five Guys, as we've discussed, have been very nice to us.
I mean, the last time we were there, you raved about the kid. You've talked to him about literally everybody else, and now you're never going to see him again.
Now I've got a guy that when he asks how I'm doing, I'm nervous he's going to follow me out of the store.
He's like, hey, here's your rewards card and a little bag of meth. First hit's free.
The girl in front of me the other day was the sweetest little thing in the world. He leans down through the plexiglass and he goes, so how you doing, sweetie?
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, oh, I'm doing so good. Thank you. She is a girl that is not judgmental and treats the whole world with kindness. I mean, I know this girl. I don't know her, but you can tell.
Yeah.
She says, I work over there at that shop, that little boutique across the street. Come and see me. I mean, she's just being nice. He goes,
Of course.
oh, yeah. Now, he doesn't have any idea what she's talking about.
Nope.
Sure, I'll be over there.
Yep.
And I feel like bum rushing her out the door saying, stranger danger, stranger danger.
Don't come back in here. Buddy system.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me just put an exclamation point on why I'm so averse to becoming 7-Eleven people. But we are. We're 7-Eleven people now.
76 cents.
You were gone. I was watching, what do they just call it? Like a murder documentary?
Yeah.
Something like that. A family was leaving their home. They were taking 2 cars. One of the cars was mistaken by a rival gang as a competitor of some sorts. Somebody got out of the car, started opening fire on this car, even though it was a family. One of the daughters ended up getting shot, and the car fled away, and they couldn't find these people. And the whole story is about how the family used social media to find these murderers. They were all on their way to 7-Eleven. That's why I'm averse to being a 7-Eleven person, because with that comes the gang life. And I don't think we, the Zeners, are ready for the aforementioned gang life.
We're not ready for that.
But that's it. We don't need to go any further about the 7-Eleven. We are well into this episode where we've talked about bidets, bread, and being 7-Eleven people.
And Kevin did say at the first sip of that 7-Eleven, at the drink, this is the best Diet Coke I've ever had.
So much syrup in there. Oh, it was just a life rush. Okay, Deborah, let's get to the topic that you were paid the big bucks to discuss. We are going to talk about what it means when we just kind of start telling ourselves fibs, when we start lying to ourselves, when we start manipulating reality to fit whatever we need it to be successful both personally and professionally. Go gentle on us. Don't go too hard this first time. We can ease into this one.
So you don't want me to start with you? Is that what you're saying?
You can start with me. I'm happy to brandish this as opposed to the listening audience.
There is a book, and it's called Crucial Conversations, and there are 4 authors. I only remember 2 of them, Patterson, Grant, and then someone named last name Patterson.
Daniel Patterson.
No.
Da Vinci Code.
No.
Got it.
Somebody whose last name is Grenny, Grenny.
Marvel Grenny.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So anyways, there's that book. The book is not a tough read, but the book has a little theory in it that I'm doing a book club with an Office of Wealth Management people.
Cool.
With this book, they had selected it. Somebody else had recommended it to me already. So I thought, oh, this is great. We'll do it, chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. The wealth management people and I might be in a little denial about this book, right? And like how to have a crucial conversation, might not be getting into it right.
Okay.
But after my most recent week, I now know how it works. And now I love it. So
okay.
It is a little bit the lies we tell ourselves, but for this conversation, I wanted a good little title. I'm really going to say the stories we tell ourselves.
Oh, that's nicer.
That's nicer. Yeah. So, one of the things that happens, so this just happened with you and I, little known to the listening audience, we will say things like, oh my gosh, we've got allergies or whatever. Here's the truth of what happens here. Sometimes it's Kevin, more often it's me, that I will sit down and I don't know if it's something I've drank or if it's something I've eaten. Today, I've had a cup of coffee earlier. I haven't eaten anything, but I will just get like this craggy, froggy throat where there's nothing to cough up, but you'll hear it in my voice. What that causes, if I cough off camera, like really cough, Kevin has to edit it out. Okay. Kevin and I are looking at each other right now. So I should be able to cough in my mind. I should be able to cough and not feel bad because nobody wants to hear this, person on a podcast.
Of course.
Right? But then Kevin gives me this look. It'd be better if Kevin just hung up a sign and said what he was thinking. But he gives me this look, and less than 5 minutes ago, I said, don't shame me, So what I hear, and this is depending on how bad of a day it is, what I tell myself. So this is not, Kevin is only giving me a look. Now, this is what I truly rational, Deb, if you got her to stop a minute and think. And so I need for you to tell me if this is true.
Okay.
You're not really angry that I'm coughing. You're just like another edit,
Totally.
another edit, another edit.
1,000%.
Right? So in a way, it doesn't have anything to do with me. It
like
has,
that little that she just did. I should edit that out because who wants to hear somebody swallowing on a podcast?
and yet he tells me to swallow that stuff if it's
I
there
tell her
all
to
day long.
swallow it
Yeah.
off microphone so I don't hear the and that comes with it.
So Kevin, and when we get done, nobody's mad at each other. I mean,
God, no.
we're like awesome with it. But he gives me this look. Now, the look literally means, have we agreed? Yet another edit for me. Thanks,
Of course.
Mom.
I mean, I sit here and I've told you this. Can't you control it? Because I just like to have it sit in the back of my throat. And you can't. And I don't care. There's no judgment on that. It literally just means I now have an extra, 10 minutes of editing out of the course of a week. But it is annoying. But it's no judgment on you because you have no control over any of it.
The other part of it is, once I really start talking, it's fine. It's kind of the stopping, starting, which is a podcast of two people.
That is the definition of a podcast.
And so then I feel myself getting a little frantic if I think you've talked too long.
Well, the best part is you'll sit there and I know that your voice is going to be bad.
Yeah.
And you'll just commit to it, even though I've told you a billion times. Better to just cough than do, guy with 7-Eleven.
So here's what I tell myself. Are you ready?
Go for it.
First of all, I say, that's not very nice of you to look at me like that. And then I think something like, when did the dynamic change? I'm the mother. I should put him in his spot.
Yeah.
That is not good behavior.
By all means, if you want to start editing, you can do it.
And then it'll go on this little spiral. Now, I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable for me.
Sure.
Okay. So the spiral could be anything. It could be like, ugh, what is wrong with you?
And you're saying this about yourself.
Right. I'm saying that about myself, not about you. It could be, he's so mean. He's so impatient. He's so, right? It could be all those things too. I could be slapping labels on you as fast as I'm slapping them on myself. Right. But it also could be about me. It would be like, oh, he just thinks like, I'm too old and I don't know how to clear my throat anymore. Does he think I have throat dementia? I could go back and forth all day long with these things I tell myself.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely.
So then what ends up happening is if I really am, you and I have worked this particular thing out, but if we haven't, then I carry those things with me, meaning he's not very nice. He's super impatient. He doesn't love me like he should.
You start filling in the gaps of what is a conversation, but it's only one-sided and it's only on your end and it's only coming from your insecurities, which is the definition of toxic.
Yes, because eventually I'm going to react to you.
Of course.
That's going to come out one way or another. Or the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about that with somebody else.
Got it.
Meaning he's mean. And it could be anything. He's mean. He's narcissistic. we can just go down. He's crazy.
He's
right?
a throat judger.
He's a throat judger. Okay. So one of the things, I worked with this great group this week, and one of the things that is not my favorite thing in conversation, because every time it happens, I feel like it's going to turn into an SNL skit, right?
Oh, fun.
It's when people say this, I think I hear you saying, right? Where they're going to repeat it back,
Sure.
which is actually...
Isn't that like coach speak though too? Don't they teach you that?
And I'm not going to say that it's not effective. I'm just going to say for me, I think a Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah.
I think Pat is coming right after telling us how to feel.
Got
right?
it. Pat is an old skit where you didn't know the gender of the person named Pat for all of our Zoomers.
Yeah. And so, or the thing where somebody says, it's about their feelings, where they just talk about like, not you make me feel, but this is what I'm feeling. And then, but somehow we're culpable and responsible for those feelings.
Sure.
Right. So this week, a guy that I really trust and admire in a meeting somebody had said some stuff that was a little awkward. I'm not going to lie. I mean, awkward to the group. And he took a minute and he said, the story I'm telling myself right now, that's what he led with. And I was like, crucial conversations, right? I mean, it's the book.
Yeah.
And then he said the stuff. And I am telling you, it came across so smooth. Nothing accusatory, nothing about feelings, right? It just, and the way you say it, because it's the story I'm telling me.
Right.
Meaning you fully own it, right? It was beautiful. And all it did was segue into an amazing discussion to kind of get us to the difficult place, right?
Yep.
And so then I watched the staff do that back and forth. We had one incident where somebody said something that I think everybody in the room felt was inappropriate because it was about somebody else. And that person declared, I thought this was a safe space. And I said it has to be safe for everybody.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
safe spaces aren't one-way roads.
Including the person you just kind of dumped on, right? So that was the only, I would say, glitch that we had in several days of having really honest, I'm going to say kind of vulnerable conversations. So we did a little, kind of play acting between a person who was in charge, who is very serious, really single-minded. When he's working, he's into it,
Very
he's
regimented.
Yeah. Almost like the military. He's a really disciplined guy. He's a runner, he eats right, all of that. And then he's got two people that work for him that he professes his love for, thinking they're great, but they're like big personalities, full of emotion, over the top. And so we did this little thing how one of them, because when you have that kind of personality, they also love to tell stories. It's a little bit like mine. And we might, just for the sake of the story, embellish something for a joke. Not any harm is intended, right? So, if somebody says something like, oh, this client was really upset, right? And it's between the two girls and they're laughing and they know their language. But then the second girl takes it and says to this guy who wasn't part of it, like, ugh, you have no idea, the client, right? So they added a little emotion onto it too. And then he said, he literally grabbed the table.
So we go from hyperbolic to a little sarcastic to a guy who's now taking it literally.
To a guy who's taking it literally. And he literally grabbed the front of the desk like he was holding on for dear life. He goes, it becomes a tsunami to me at that point, right? So it was so good how then they did it, saying, really practicing it like it should be and really understanding their own styles, right? So he could say, like, how upset is that client? Give it to me for real.
Right.
Now he knows he can ask that. But also she knows that she doesn't want to send him into a clean and clear panic.
Right.
Right. So she can deliver it with him a little differently. With her coworker, they can banter back and forth all day because they just get each other.
Because they speak the same language.
Because they speak the same language. But when you say the story I'm telling myself is that client is never going to darken our door, we're never going to see them again, they're going to call the CEO, and I'm going to lose my job. Do you see what I mean, how that goes?
Totally.
When you say that to a person, it's like, oh, I might have told that with a little bit too much juice on it, right? So they all started laughing after we got through this little thing. And of course, it was a big group. We begs to, what were you laughing about? One of the days, one of the girls of the emotional two, we'll just call them the emotional two, called into the other emotional one. She's crying. She says, my cat died. Now she's a cat lover. It's her pet,
right.
And she says, I'll be in a little bit later. We're going to bury him in the backyard. The other girl professes that she understood that the cat died.
Cat died. Bury in the backyard. Be in later.
But she went to the boss that's more serious, right? And said her dad died.
Dad died. Gonna bury him in the backyard.
Didn't say burying him in the backyard.
Got it.
So now he knows that she's close with her dad. And he's like, oh no, her dad died. Now, number one, he genuinely feels terrible for her. Number two, he's looking at the week or two ahead of him, thinking she's not going to be here.
Of course, dad
died. Then the girl later, who I just think accidentally said dad. I mean, that came out of her mouth, not cat.
I mean, I could see how dad, cat, if somebody says it too fast or out of context, you can jumble that in your head, especially if you're a little intense.
And then she later says she's going to be in later. And he's thinking, no, she doesn't. Her dad died. She doesn't have to come in later.
Right.
And then she says, after she buries him in the backyard.
See.
And I looked at him and he goes, there was a second.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, I knew it was the cat.
It's a religious thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. That's exactly what I said. We all had a great chuckle over that, but it was such a perfect example. Now, one of the people that were in a completely different area, different office, said, I actually heard her dad died. I didn't hear the bury him in the backyard part.
It's a horrible game of telephone happening right now.
But anyways, what ends up happening then is like an owner hears something, then an owner comes over the top and wants to fix this thing because they think that people aren't able to fix it themselves, right? And so I think the important part about this is in the world of being vulnerable, and again, I'm Brene Brown all day long, folks, but I still say be vulnerable with people that you know are trustworthy, for sure. But I think it is pretty safe to say the story I'm telling myself, because it's only about you. Now, the response is, you're wrong. That's not the right response, right? Like if you were to say to me, if I said, and I know that you think I'm a loser because I have phlegm in my throat, right? And then you correct me and go, Mom, this is just an edit thing for me. Right. That's all it is. After that, I am wholly responsible for all of this because you've truly set me free.
Sure.
And if I keep reading stuff into it, that is on me 100%. But I think this, first of all, get the book if you want. I think the book I read.
Say the book, say the title again.
Crucial Conversations.
CC's.
You're going to turn everything into an acronym, ComCom. So I think it might be a good book, like book club book.
Ooh,
right?
Fun.
And everybody talk about it. And when you use examples, either use examples of yourself or make sure that you clear, if you're using another person, clear it with their permission. But I think the book is not a difficult read for me, but the theory of it, I'm just going to say sometimes it annoys me, but you'll get through it. It'll be good. It's an incredible way to communicate that keeps the focus on yourself, meaning each person keeps the focus on themselves. And that's where the responsibility in the end lies.
Understand who you're talking to. Meet them on their conversation level, simultaneously understand how you need to be communicated with so that you can cut out the unnecessary self-talk and everybody understands very black and white what's happening. And then when you find somebody who meets you where you exist in your own conversation styles, acknowledge that, but then be wary that everybody else doesn't talk or communicate the same way that you do.
What this also does for managers, it keeps so much off of a manager's plate because people aren't running to the manager. And one of the things that I've said for years, and I think I've said it on here too, my preferred style, if I have a group of people reporting to me, is if Kevin has a problem with Haley, Kevin and Haley need to go to each other first, right? If Kevin and Haley can't figure it out or can't agree, then Kevin and Haley have to go to their supervisor. If the three of them, meaning the supervisor, can't kind of mediate it or get stuck in it somewhere in the muddy water of the deal, then the three of them have to come to me because you keep it so clean when you have to tell your story in front of the other people, right?
Totally.
We tend to bend it to make it work for us if we just have someone's attention and their ear by themselves. So we also talked about doing that. And one of the things is these people are working managers, meaning they have a job. They've got to do that job. And that job is probably close to being an 8-hour-a-day job. But they also have management responsibilities as well that they have to squeeze in there. If you can take some of this stuff, which occupies so much time in the American workforce, and keep it where it belongs, which means between the people, then you're shoving a bunch of that stuff off your plate, which feels amazing.
Don't lie to yourself. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with the people that you work with. It makes for a much easier and expedited work experience when everybody's speaking the same language.
And if you're telling yourself some weird story, say it out loud to the person.
Perfect. Love it. Now we're going to go into the segment where Deb is going to cough a lot because I'm going to be speaking for long swaths of time. So the edits are going to pile up and boy, am I excited. No judgment on this face. 3 questions in Dear Debbie, not posed to us, but we will do our best to answer them. 2 are business related. 1 is usually fun. Let's get going. Question number 1.
Yep.
Dear Debbie, this is good. This is Airbnb, and with the world opening back up and homes being available to people, this is applicable to all the Airbnb bed and breakfast owners. I've owned a very lovely bed and breakfast in a boutique community for 15 years now. In the last year, I have noticed an upswing in guests being wantonly destructive. For example, we had a woman dye her bright red hair in her bathroom sink and then wipe her hands on the vintage wallpaper, leaving unfixable stains.
What?
This guest then disputed the repair charge, which left me with the repapering bill. Could you recommend a gentle and non-alienating way to ask guests to not destroy my home, or perhaps verbiage for a sign? I really do generally enjoy these guests, but I simply cannot afford to repeatedly replace wallpaper and antique paintings that have been stolen right off the wall. Please help.
Does she have an Airbnb contract? Do we know?
This, I believe, is a traditional bed and breakfast.
Okay.
I don't think she co-partners with Airbnb. I think it's more just of what you would find on Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray.
Okay. You and I, do you remember years ago stayed
Sure do.
at a bed and breakfast?
Yep.
And it was a beautiful home. It was like incredible breakfast. It was a distant family member owned it, which is why we wanted to frequent it.
Yep.
And what did we say? Never again.
Nope.
We're not the worst experience of our life by any means, but we are not suited for, and I'm going to say, the kind of bed and breakfast she has described.
Yeah.
We need a TV in every room.
We want it to feel like an extension of our home. Not that we even want to stay there, but when we are there, we want it to feel fully accessible. And a bed and breakfast is quite literally a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
And then everything else is communal, and it's meant to kind of just be this cozy experience for you to relax, even though it's ironic because there's a bunch of strangers everywhere.
Often the owner may have a floor of the house themselves.
Yeah.
And she did. Like, I think the third floor was all hers. It felt to me, it was beautiful. There was nothing wrong with our experience, except it just didn't fit us. We were incredible guests because we adapted to what we realized it was. That being said, we probably weren't the most relaxed guests. And we spent a lot of time away from there, where you hear about people like hanging out at the bed and breakfast in the living room and having a little port. That wasn't us.
No.
Okay.
To be fair, I was like 12.
Yeah, you were young. So you could not have had the port.
Yeah.
But the problem was you were 12. You were 12. You were probably 6 feet tall. You were thumping all around. You were running down the stairs, up the stairs. You were like, where's the TV? And it was like, oh, it's on the BBC channel downstairs, right?
With 14 other people who are 50 years older than you who want nothing more than to see what's happening in England.
Right. So here's where I think the problem is. I think true bed and breakfasters know what the deal is and behave accordingly, because she's acting like this is just recently kind of taken a turn.
Yeah.
Now what's happened is we've gotten Airbnbers mixed up with bed and breakfast people.
The hoodlum Airbnbers.
They are not the same.
No.
Because the Airbnbers, we're looking for a strong Wi-Fi. We're looking for a TV in every room. We're looking to run around and kind of pretend like it's our house. I don't mean do damage. We're not, obviously. Do you know what I mean? I know some are, and we've heard all the stories. But also, they have a credit card on file to protect themselves from that. I think the thing that's hard for her is she doesn't have, I'm going to say, the partnership or the protection of Airbnb, because I think Airbnb would stand behind her with the hair dye on the wall.
Oh, for sure.
And Airbnb would have stood behind her and been the mediator for stolen paintings.
Airbnb builds all that stuff into the contract for like cleaning fees and then damage fees and all that stuff. And so that's really all she has to do is you put that stuff into the fine print.
Yeah.
You hold on to the credit card, and the second, you check the room and you start cleaning and you see red handprints all over the walls or on the vintage hand towels, those charges stay on the card and they're now yours.
I mean, I have often thought, and it's the same as going to somebody's house, because that's what a bed and breakfast feels like, at least to me. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not their residence, they've taken care as if it were their residence. And I often think like, no, don't put these crisp ironed pressed linens here. I mean, God knows what I'm washing off my hands. I know they should be clean, but
Yeah, is there a bidet around here? I don't want to use this crisp, silky linen.
I'm going to wash my hands in the bidet if that's what it comes to. Right.
My one Airbnb story, I have many Airbnb stories because when I traveled, all I stayed at was Airbnbs, but Airbnbs were still fairly new at this time. So in major metropolitan cities, they were very accessible, especially on the West Coast. In other cities that were still considered big, it was slim pickings. I found myself in Pittsburgh, and I was always the first one there, and I was always the one who booked the Airbnb. That was kind of my thing. I always wanted to stay somewhere nice, and I knew a lot of people that I worked with didn't care. So I took it upon myself. And there was this huge home just outside of Pittsburgh, and I wanted the master. But the master only had like a twin in the master, which I thought was super weird,
really
right?
Weird. Yeah.
And the room next door had 2 queen-size beds. So I was there a day before everybody. And I said, well, I'm just going to take my twin, put it in the other room, because there was 2 other people who were coming.
So you were moving furniture?
And I'm going to take the queen and move it in to this master. So, I mean, it took me like all of 30 minutes. Everybody comes, everybody stays, clean, fine, whatever it is.
Everybody sees you're a sneaky guy.
I had stayed in 30 Airbnbs at this point, 5-star reviews all around. I got a 1-star review from the homeowner for moving the beds.
Oh, that's too much. That's too bad of a score for that.
I was floored. And I thought to myself, okay, well, you have a huge track record here of 5 stars. I went to book an Airbnb that 3 stops down the road. That one bad review made sure that I couldn't book an Airbnb from there on out. I had to create an entirely brand new account.
What?
Yeah. So there's the discrepancy of it's like, I understand that this is still somebody's house. And yeah, it might be annoying that you moved furniture. But again, the layout of your home didn't make any sense at all. Why would you have like a twin in the master? I moved it. I just forgot to move it back or didn't care or certainly didn't think anybody was going to notice. And that one-star review crippled my account and I had to go make a brand new account. Granted, the brand new account took me like 5 minutes to make and I was able to do everything I wanted to do. But there's a little give and take there.
Oh, that's bad. And then there was like, you and I stayed at an Airbnb in all places, Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to know what to do in Buffalo, we know. And that woman who actually lives in her house.
Yeah, she lived there.
Part-time. You said something in your dialogue with her before we got there about us being gluten-free. She said, I'm gluten-free and eat anything you want in the house that's gluten-free. I mean, that thing made us friends.
Yeah, it was super nice of her.
And and then we did, remember we put all the laundry. We're nice people. We strip the beds.
True.
And she was like, if there could have been 10 stars, I would have given them. So
I would say that the traditional bed and breakfast probably loves the idea, the romanticism of like, well, you just give me the $500 and it's over. Clearly, this woman needs to protect herself in the fine print and just say up front, there's a $500 deposit for damage on the room. Yeah. It'll automatically be credited back to you within 24 hours after we do a once over. But if not, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's sad. That certainly that's not as fun as everybody wants it to be. But I mean, it's 2021 and people are leaving hair dye all over your bathroom. That's what you got to do. Next question. Dear Debbie, I've been so busy at work that it has been hard to keep everything organized. This is an employee perspective. Mm-hmm. My boss keeps giving me more and more assignments because she says I am the most capable member of the team. I appreciate that, but it's becoming too much. Mm-hmm. Last week, I missed a couple of key deadlines. That is not my way. I know it was because I overlooked them trying to add on the new work that my boss just gave me. How can I tell her about the workload without seeming ungrateful? I want to be promoted and to be thought of favorably. I'm afraid that it's all about to fall apart, though, because it is just too much.
What she needs to say, and this is such a thing, I mean, that bosses do this. It's like the path of least resistance. The person is happy or appears to be happy to take the work, right? The extra work, and you can count on them to do it and do it right.
Yep.
It's sort of like elementary school, where you have that sweet little girl that is smart and does her homework and is quiet and is well-behaved.
Debbie Zehner.
We surround her with a bunch of hellions thinking
Kevin
she'll
Zehner.
Influence them,
Yep.
right? I mean, and that poor little girl eventually has anxiety and PTSD
Debbie Zehner.
from being around them.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think, again, we've talked about this before, but I think the date, meaning, Susie, I have this thing. Could you do this for me? I need it by thus and such. That is the time for Susie to say, I'd love to do the project. It looks amazing. But if you want it by this date, I can't because I've got this, 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 and this on my plate. That is the moment. That is, and I don't think that there's any resentment built into that. I don't think that's saying no. It's saying I would love to do it. But I mean, unless I don't shower, go home at night, it's not going to get done. So the boss is the one that has the authority to then prioritize, kind of reprioritize the work if she wants Susie to do it. The other thing it does on Susie's behalf, it reminds the boss, I can say this from experience, I don't remember how much I'm giving them.
Sure.
Right? I mean, like, come on. And so it reminds me like, oh, I've kind of overloaded her. Now, from my perspective, her perspective is I want to do good work and I want to be promoted. My perspective is I want her to be happy and I want to keep her, right?
Right.
So we both get to then kind of reassess and decide what should be done. But I think it's in that moment, and I think when you do that, there's no hard feelings. I think the sincerity is there to want to do the work. It's just that she is conscientious and she also wants to meet the deadlines. And now there's too much. That's what I think you do.
The question is the answer, right?
Right.
Clearly, your boss trusts you implicitly and is using you as a crutch in a good way.
Yeah.
And so it's up to you just to say, hey, as your crutch, there's too much weight on me right now.
Exactly.
And I think any boss who trusts an employee implicitly, like this boss obviously trusts this employee, like you said, just puts blinders on and says, well, she's got it. And I'm just going to keep shoveling it at her because she's my stalwart. She's the best and she can carry any load that I give her. The second you say, hey, I'm drowning here, that boss will be the first person to say, you should have said something to me, typically, unless they're horrible.
Unless it's Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada.
Right.
And there are industries that work like that. And when I say industries, there are really industries that it's okay to overwork, take advantage, totally blur the lines between personal and professional. And people that are in those industries know what they are.
Totally. And you just got to be your own advocate. Got to stick up for yourself. And and chances are the person who's giving you that workload is just ignorant to it and will immediately backpedal or do exactly what you said, give you a list of prioritizing what they need in that moment. Question number 3, a little relationship advice. And I think this is applicable to every relationship. And here's why. Dear Debbie, while I was putting my husband's socks away in his dresser, I found a jewelry box inside a little gift bag. Even though this is our first anniversary as a married couple, we said we were not going to spend a lot of money on each other for our anniversary this year. So I just got him a couple little necessary items he needed for work. Now, I feel like a cheapskate and want to go out and get him something special, but 1, I don't know what to get him, and 2, I don't make that much money and we're trying to keep our expenses down so we can save up for a house. I feel happy that he wants to spoil me, a little angry that he didn't follow our agreement, and sad I can't afford to get him something really special. Should I make the stretch and get him something more than just practical stuff? This is like the most relationship question ever. We're not going to get each other anything special. And then everybody assumes that's code for get me something special.
Oh, is it because I really believe we're not going to get each other anything special?
I think you're the one person in the world who believes that. I think everybody says, hey, this Valentine's Day, this Christmas, this anniversary, this birthday, nothing crazy. I don't want anything crazy. And then one or both go over the top.
Well, and I think if Dad does listen to the podcast, I think he would say, oh, she's such a liar, because he will say to me, hey, remember we agreed just 3 small gifts this year, and I'll say yes. Or then we say that in September, and then 2 weeks before Christmas, I say, did we say that?
Right.
I think if you have said that, well, first of all, it's just sad that she found it. I mean, that she stumbled upon it.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, that's a bummer. And it's sad for a couple of reasons. She stumbled onto the gift, number 1. And then number 2, she has now to deal with this prior to the gift giving,
sure.
Right?
Which again, let's not be crazy. This shouldn't occupy all of your time.
Right. So I look at gifts this way, and I God knows, I don't know if this is right or wrong. I mean, there are all sorts of etiquettes and books written about giving gifts, right? I think that there are times in life where I figure out some cool gift for you that is so amazing, knock your socks off, and may or may not be expensive,
right,
but is just the gift that's going to make the whole Christmas.
Totally.
And I don't even care about my Christmas gifts when that happens. I'm so excited to give that thing to you, right? I think that, and if I have Dad in on that, he's in the same place. Like, that's the gift. We're excited. That Christmas is kind of about you a little bit, sure, and a little bit less about us. That's happened for me. That's happened for Dad. So I have a little bit about, like, every gift giving event doesn't have to be a home run.
Well, it also doesn't have to be even.
And it doesn't have to be even.
Right.
So I go back to, what if she hadn't found it? Right?
Right.
And I would be more worried that now I have to act surprised at something I've already seen. That's what I would honestly be worried about. But what if she hadn't found it? So, I mean, here's what you do. You get this thing, and like she said, she loves him for wanting to be romantic. It's their first anniversary. You got to just go with that, right?
Totally. Trust the guy that he knows himself and his finances well enough to understand that he's not crippling you or the joint bank account, that he had enough money socked away to buy you something special for your first anniversary.
Right, exactly. And then the things she bought him, give him give him those.
Right.
Don't go add to it, because what she gets to say in the middle of all of it, I mean, she gets to grab his sweet face, give him a kiss and say, I thought we weren't going to, do you know what I mean? Which they'll both laugh to.
And he's got his answer locked and loaded that he knows is going to resonate with you. Don't overthink it. Be happy. Be happy you married a guy who's thinking about you, who told you the best kind of lie, which is, don't worry about me because I have something special for you. Sounds like a great guy. And hey, to the guy, why are you keeping your stuff in your sock drawer, you moron? That's idiot. The last place you should ever keep anything, especially if your wife does your laundry.
Right.
Just keep it literally anywhere else.
And then don't be Love Actually. Make sure
make sure it's for you.
Gets that gift.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, that's really interesting you said that, because as I was reading it the second time, my first thought was Love Actually. She hopes it's for her and that she actually gets it on their anniversary.
Yeah.
Totally different email otherwise. Yeah. Whew. Long episode today, Deborah. As we wind this down, why don't you tell us what's for dinner? Even if you don't have an idea, maybe I have an idea. Long episode today, Deborah. Why don't I tell you what we should do for dinner?
Okay, go ahead.
We have, from Easter, still left over, some ham.
Yep.
Lord knows we have a bunch of onions.
Yep.
We have bell peppers that need to be used.
Yep.
And we have some russet potatoes that have not been cooked that can be used as well. I say we make a traditional diner hash for dinner tonight.
Yep.
You poach your eggs in your perfect vinegar bath poach 3-minute thing.
Yep.
And then we slice up some of that sourdough bread, grill it, butter it, put some jam on it.
Oh my God.
How good does that sound?
Kevin, I love you for thinking of that. For all the women out there, aren't you just tired of thinking of dinner? Call Kevin. He'll give you some examples at kevinziener.com. I say .com, but there's no .com.
I thought about that before, at .com. I thought about that before we came onto the pod. I saw the ham in there. I said, that ham is still good. There's a boatload of onions. We've got a bunch of potatoes that we usually don't cook with at all. And we need to find 1,000 different ways to get this bread into your system while it's still here, while simultaneously ordering it monthly. And that felt like the most logical way for us to do that.
I love that idea. I love it.
I love that idea too. Hopefully I bought you enough time now, Deb, to tell me what you're thankful for this week.
So this very moment, I want to say this. The last podcast, because we've been traveling.
We have.
We literally, you walked in the door and within 10 minutes, we sat down and did the podcast.
If not sooner.
Which was somewhat hysterical.
Yep. Did you listen to it?
I did listen to it, yeah.
Did I sound like a lunatic?
No, it came off okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But there wasn't, I'm going to say, the pleasure of the deep breath and the process.
Yeah.
And then I ran off to pack clothes and get on it. So I was doing the same thing on the flip side.
It genuinely felt like we haven't seen each other in a couple weeks.
This felt so good. I was on time. I was on time.
Noted.
This felt so good. In the middle of this, I've thought several times, this is how it should be. I'm so grateful that we're taking our time and it's a relaxed, beautiful Sunday. This is the way it needs to be. So I am grateful for the cadence, the ambiance, the feel, the goodness, the relaxed vibe of today's podcast.
I'm 1,000% with you as it relates to that. I still do the three things. I wake up in the morning, I still say the 3 things that I was thankful for the day before. And if you're not doing that and you want to start doing that, here's a little life hack for you. If you concentrate on food, it's so much easier. So for me, genuinely, with 1,000% sincerity, I'm so happy that bread has worked out the way it has worked out. I mean, I told you earlier this morning, I was a little worried that this was just going to be an absolute S show, both literally and figuratively. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you woke up feeling great, that you got to now indulge, hopefully in perpetuity, this thing that is the number one thing you crave, which is a crunchy, crusty sourdough that you can butter up and dip in olive oil and balsamic and just feel kind of normal. To me, that's so happy for you. And because that makes you happy, that makes me happy, and we get bread back in this house.
Yay!
It's great.
Yeah.
It's
What's
the best.
The name of it again?
Noble Bakery in Phoenix, and I'm almost positive they ship.
Yay!
And if not, we
exciting.
got a bread plug. We'll just ask all the girls down in Phoenix to send it our way.
Super, super, super exciting.
That's going to do it this week for the Deb and Kev podcast, or I guess just for this Monday. Remember to like, rate, and review wherever you listen to this podcast, and follow us on all of our social channels at Deb and Kev. And you can watch this episode on our YouTube channel at Deb and Kev. Mom, I love you to death.
I love you, baby.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Happy you can eat bread.
Me too.
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank you for listening to the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Follow Deb and Kev on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter at Deb and Kev Pod.